Hi, I'm Anne-Marie from brambleberry.com. Today, I'm going to be showing you how to make these very adorable donut soaps. One of the things I like about this project is it's very customizable. You can see that there's lots of different color combinations, and you can make totally like full 360 donuts, or the mold comes and you pour like this, so you could actually have donuts that you didn't put together if quantity is more important to you than the full shape. For this particular project, we're going to be using Raspberry Truffle Fragrance Oil from Brambleberry, which smells really delicious. I really wish this was a donut right about now. And these eco-friendly biodegradable beads to kind of mimic the look of sprinkles. But again, you can totally customize for so many different colors and so many different fragrances. This mold is super versatile. Some of my other favorite toppings are like rose petals or lavender looks pretty good. Glitter always is fun. Salt is fun. Poppy seeds are fun. So lots of different options for your toppings. The first step to this project, which by the way is pretty age appropriate for everybody, so fun for the whole family if you have kids, is gonna be to fill this mold. It's flat on this side, and we're going for a kind of clear opaque, which sounds confusing, but what we're gonna do is do 11 ounces of the clear soap and just 1 ounce of the white soap from Brambleberry. And so the first step to doing that is to cut these up into smaller chunks. The reason we cut them up into smaller chunks is because then they melt more easily and evenly in the microwave. If you just put this entire block in the microwave, A, it would take a long time to melt because there wouldn't be any air pockets, and B, it also melts from the inside out. So you end up with scorched soap. Trust me, I've done it, I've tried it, it doesn't work. So that's why we cut these into smaller chunks. So cut these into smaller chunks, and again, it's gonna be 11 ounces of clear and 1 ounce of the white. Now I'm gonna weigh this out. I want 11 ounces, but you know what? I am going for a pretty particular look with my brown color. You might not be as persnickety as me, so your ratios might vary just a little bit. So I'm going for 11 ounces of this and then just about 1 ounce of this white. So the reason I'm doing just 1 ounce of white is because if I was trying to get a brown bar of soap and I was trying to color over white, what I'd be essentially doing is, well, basically getting a pastel brown, so not even a tan. So that's why it's mostly clear, because that clear really allows the brown color to come through in a beautiful chocolatey way, but then the white gives it just a little bit of opacity. Now I'm just gonna pop this in the microwave, 30-second bursts. Remember, we don't want this boiling, we don't want it to scorch, so that's why we do 30-second bursts. So while I'm here cutting and I have everything set up for that, I'm just gonna cut some soap for my frosting. Just about 3 ounces. You're not gonna use the full 3 ounces, but what I find is that it's kind of hard to melt less than 3 ounces. So I'm just going to try and get about 3 ounces of this, and we'll set it aside to melt down for later with our frosting. Now that this soap is melted, it's time to get in the brown oxide color block. And I'm gonna use a fair amount of it, but in order for the warm soap to melt the brown, it does have to be in kind of smaller, thinner shavings. So that's why I'm using the scraper tool from Brambleberry to make my small shavings so they'll melt in easier. You could also use just a knife to cut off little slivers. My soap should be warm enough to melt all that brown, and it's doing pretty good. I feel like this is definitely too light though. So I think I'm gonna do some more of that brown. Otherwise it's not gonna be quite as dark as I want it to be. So now I've added just a little bit more of that brown oxide color block. This is a much better brown for my base of my really cute donut soap. And before I pour, don't forget the most important thing, the fragrance oil. I'm gonna use 6 milliliters of the Raspberry Truffle Fragrance Oil from Brambleberry. I just love this scent. So good, it makes me hungry. It's like fresh raspberries and dark chocolate, and smells so good. It does discolor a little bit. Now, this is totally optional because in this case, I'm making a brown bar of soap, so it doesn't really matter that it's going to discolor, but I am going to use some of their Brambleberry Vanilla Color Stabilizer. This is a fragrance additive that basically helps the discoloration not occur. It's like magic, and it's used in equal parts. So I'm using 6 milliliters of this product as well, and adding that directly to the soap. I don't notice any performance changes at all, but it does help keep that discoloration at a minimum. Now, one thing to note is this product does only work in melt and pour. So if you're a cold process soap and you're like, woohoo, holy grail, it doesn't work in cold process soap. It only works in melt and pour, but it's awesome. So I have my mold here and I'm gonna have to move this. So I put it on the cutting board so I can move it out easily of the way without having any spillage or any issues. And I really want to have flat backs here because remember, I'm gonna try and glue these two sides together. So I'm trying to pour evenly so they fit together perfectly when this is all done. One of the parts to pouring evenly and pouring this mold evenly is to fill it to the tippy top. And if you watch enough Soap Queen TV videos, you know I typically don't fill my molds to the tippy top. But the reason I'm doing it now is because we do have to have these two sides fit perfectly flat together. So that way there's no gap when we are gluing our donut together. And you'll notice I have just a little bit of extra. That's going to be our glue. So now we're going to spray with rubbing alcohol because I can see bubbles. You might not be able to see them on camera, but the rubbing alcohol is going to get rid of those bubbles, which is great. Breaks the surface tension, perfectly flat, smooth backs. Also eyeball this and make sure I don't have any that aren't a little bit underfilled. This guy's just a little bit underfilled. And again, I don't want any gaps. So I'm just going to fill it just a little bit more. There we go. And now I'm going to move this to the side and we just wait 3 to 6 hours for this to harden. So I made these a little bit earlier and now it's time to pop them out. They are difficult to pop out, not gonna lie. They're way harder than silicone molds, so you gotta use a little bit of elbow grease, but it's not terrible. Use your thumbs a lot. If you really are struggling though to get these out, you can pop them in the freezer for, honestly, I wouldn't do more than 3 to 5 minutes. And what that does is it helps kind of make all the soap constrict or kind of condense down. The reason you don't leave it in the freezer for too long though is because condensation can form if these get too cold and you don't want condensation to form. So that is one trick if you're struggling to get these out of the mold. I find the middle ones the hardest to get out. But these ones are popping out pretty easily and they were just made this morning, so that's good. Okay, see, told you the middle ones are the hardest to get out. So I'm going to take my dropper, fill it up with soap, and I'm just going to keep this right down here. And I usually like to get, so that's not quite enough. So I want at least 2 dropperfuls, if not 3 of the soap. And I don't want it to harden up on me either though, because if it hardens up, then it won't squish down and it won't glue together. So I'm going to try that. That's 2. And push down. And I see a little bit squishing out on the side, so I'm just going to rub that away. If it too much squishes out on the side and it gets hard on you, you can always use a knife to kind of clean it up as well. So now I'm just going to make sure that I have these seams pretty evenly. Okay, that's good. Now I'm going to work on my last one. So if you are making a lot of these, because I mean these make great party favors, are super cute. This looks really adorable, just like that too. So you don't have to glue it. I like the look of this, but if you're making like 50 of them, or 100 of them, this is super cute. It's gonna be a crowd pleaser no matter what. And now it's time to frost. So I'm gonna go ahead and melt this 3 ounces of the white soap that I chopped up earlier, and then we'll color it. So I'm gonna do a little bit of the electric bubblegum color block and also a little bit of the perfect red color block. These two together make a really great pink color. Just the perfect red on its own was just, I don't know the word, a little muddy, but just this on its own was also just a little bright. So I did both of these kind of to get the perfect hue and tone for my pink. That's really gonna be able to stand up against this brown color. Oh, this looks like a pretty good pink. I'm pretty happy with it. Okay, great. So now it's time to frost. So there's a couple ways you can do it. One, you can kind of try and glaze using this Easy Pour container from Bramble. This is pretty good for glazing. I like to do a dropper. Temperature also matters on this because you don't want the soap to be so warm that it just runs over, but you don't want it to be so cold that you don't get the beautiful striping. So it's really a personal preference on what kind of design you want to do. And remember, it's soap, so there's nothing to go wrong here. You're going to have something very cute in the end no matter what. One thing to keep in mind though for the design is you do need it to be still wet if you're putting toppings on like sprinkles and you want them to stay. So I'm just gonna make my sprinkles and my designs right on here because this is basically indestructible. You probably don't have that at home, so maybe use a cutting board or lay down some wax paper or something like that, because you'll see, this gets a little messy. I'm just gonna drop some of this into my dropper and weep, weep. Don't worry, it looks better over time. I'm gonna spray away the bubbles though before they set, because the bubbles don't look great. Gotta spray the bubbles because if you don't, they set up. One last layer before my sprinkles, so I for sure have some actual soap that's gonna stay on there that the sprinkles will adhere to. And then I'm just gonna spray my sprinkles on, and you'll get some of these sprinkles that'll fall off later because they got on a spot that didn't have wet soap. But there we go, donut one, done. So now I'm just gonna, you can leave this here, I'm just gonna move it out of the way and do the next one. And I'll show you kind of what it looks like to do with the Easy Pour. It's a lot messier, less precise, but faster. So here we go, moment of truth. Whee! See how much faster that is? But it is less precise and I am wasting more soap. You guys make me hungry. Okay, so now I'm just gonna do just a little bit more and spray and sprinkle. I like how this one turned out. Perfect. Okay, and then I have my final one. So if you don't have a dropper and you don't have an Easy Pour container, you can always use a spoon. This one is definitely the one I'm least good at, but I think it's also because the implement's a little bit, I mean, it's harder to control the velocity and flow of this hot soap coming off the spoon, but I still think it looks good. So I'm gonna just do one tiny little bit more, even though I really love this design because I want the soap to be wet enough to have the sprinkles survive. I didn't spray with alcohol because I didn't see any major bubbles, so that's why I didn't spray with the alcohol, but I'm going to now. Okay, done and done. Dropper, Easy Pour, and spoon. They all look pretty much the same, so it's just a personal preference on what you want to do. And do you see all this soap that's here? That is why I suggested doing it on a cutting board, because, or parchment paper or a wax paper, because you'll be able to scrape this all off, remelt it and use it again. That's the beauty of melt and pour. These are ready to package up and give away or use right away. No cure time needed. I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and I can't wait to craft with you again. Till next time, bye. Donut one, done. Donut one in the hole.